There we go. So we're going to get started, and I'll talk a lot about the course administration in this. We're not really going to get through any material today because there's a lot of pre-work you guys will need to do, which I'm going to explain today, and I'll talk about the course structure. And if you have questions, you're welcome to add them in the chat as we go, or you can obviously just raise your hand and ask as we go through as well. So in terms of my contact, I've put my email on the slides. I prefer not to have messages through Moodle because I don't go into Moodle very often because we won't really be using it all that much in the course, other than you're going to have to download all your files. Mostly in the course, you're going to be using Sage and doing transactions, which we're going to talk about. So if you do have anything you want to ask because you can't figure it out when you're going through the textbook, you can book a time, ideally on Wednesdays, because I'll tell you a little bit about how the course typically works in person. So if we were in person, we'd be in a lab, and I would talk for maybe, depending on today might be a little longer because it's the administration, but normally what I'll do is go through what you're going to be covering in the week, give some demos of common problems students have with the material in the textbook, and then you would just be working through the textbook, doing all of your stuff in the software. So what we're going to do in the class is kind of going to try to mimic a little bit of that, where a lot of it you'll just be doing online. So, but if you do have a problem, if you just email it to me and say, I don't know how to do this, I'm not going to be able to tell you how, but the best way would be for us to book an individual meeting like we are here. And just like I'm sharing my screen, you could actually share your screen with me and show me what actually is wrong with yours so that we can try to figure it out, almost like we're in a lab. So that's kind of what I'm thinking to try for this, since we're not actually in a lab. So in terms of the way the course works, in terms of the dates, it's May 2nd to August 15th, and I'll talk more about what happens each week. August 15th is the date of the final exam, and the course was scheduled Monday, Wednesday, 10 to 11:50. But it says right in the outline, it's a blend of instruction and self-directed activity. So this is the textbook that you need. Has anyone bought this textbook already or had access to it? Just want to see if anyone's already done it yet. Tried it out. Sounds like someone unmuted, but anyway, if you haven't already bought the textbook, you should do that. There is a link right in Moodle. And when you buy the textbook, you can actually access it directly through Moodle. So there's a link you click on and it'll take you to the ebook. And if you have any problems with the ebook, there is also a contact on Moodle where you just basically click the link and it'll take you right through the help for the ebook. So that's not something I can help with, but there is definitely support for that. And I did have a person helping me with integrating that into Moodle so that you can just access it that way. Now, if you do like printed books, of course, you can order it yourself that way. I personally like to have the book when I was working through this, when I was first teaching this class. Also, one thing to note is that if you're planning to actually work in accounting down the road using Sage, the textbook could be helpful for you, because some of the material we don't maybe cover in this class, but you might need to do it if you're working in accounting later on. So I would say this is one of the more practical courses in accounting because you're actually going to be using the software to record transactions. And this software is actually what I use myself to do all my rental properties, because I have rental properties on the side, and Sage is actually really, really good for recording different little small businesses, and even medium businesses use it as well. So in terms of the evaluation, you can see here that there's different marks for each activity. So we have 2 exams. So the first one is 30%, the second one is 40%, and then there's also a case that's 30%. And that's the total of all the marks assigned for the class. Now, you're not going to have an exam like you do in some classes where there's like multiple choice and things like that. This course really is more activity based. So you would be entering into the software, you'd be saving files, and then you'd be uploading them for me to see and review. So it is really a practical course where you're actually recording transactions. So there was prerequisites in the class to understand accounting. And so you will be required to use that knowledge. You can't really use Sage without understanding accounting in some cases. So if you do need to pull out your intro accounting textbook at times, you may want to do that as you're recording transactions. If you are looking in the textbook for Sage and going, wait, they're not really explaining why I'm debiting this or crediting this. They're assuming you already know that. Now, at times, if there's something that I know is a little confusing, that's what I'd be covering in this class on Mondays, where I'd be saying, hey, here's a review of how, say, prepaids work or something like that. If I have, especially if one of you goes, hey, I don't get this, and then someone else messages me and say, I don't get this as well, then I definitely would be covering that. So if you do have questions where you think something's particularly difficult in the textbook, it would be helpful, even if you figure it out, just send me a little email saying, hey, I found this textbook, the textbook on this page wasn't very clear on this. And then I can cover it in the next week class so that everybody would know. Because if you had a problem with it, likely someone else will also have a problem with it. So as I already mentioned, the course textbook does guide you through the activities to learn Sage 50. So it's different than a typical class where you're reading chapters and it's quite boring and you go, do I need to read this? I could just read the slides or listen to the instructor talk and I will know enough. In this course, it is absolutely critical to go through each chapter and do the activities. And so what we'll do on Mondays is I'll be online just like right now, and I'll give a demo of whatever it is that we're going to be working on that week and answer common questions. And then you would still have work time. So typically it won't take the whole class to go through a little bit of a demo and show you some of the stuff and the questions. And then, as I mentioned, every session will be recorded in case you can't attend and want to view it again later. And especially as we're doing a demo, let's say I'm demoing something on prepaids and you're just a little behind and you haven't done that yet, then at least you could go back and watch that later to be like, oh, now I remember something was on that. Let me go look and see how she did that particular type of thing. And then Wednesday would just be time for you to work through the chapters. Now, if you, after we're done today, if you go through and you start doing some of the work, downloading the files, and let's say you finish all that quickly and you start with the other chapters, if you're finished early, great. You could work on it all day today. You could work on it Wednesday, but Wednesday, the class time is really just lab time for you to work unless you book an appointment with me to do something because you're having a problem. So I won't be online Wednesdays unless you've specifically booked time, which would be one-on-one, or if there's a group of people with the same problem, I might, if someone says, hey, I don't understand prepaids, I'm just going to keep using that as an example, then I might just have a group chat with a few of you that don't understand that particular topic. That way I can demo that specifically. Although the textbook should be self-explanatory for most things. And make sure you do finish each chapter. What happens in the course is that it builds on each other. So some of the material, you'll open a file, which I'm going to show you where the files are in a minute here. Once you open the file and you record some transactions, if you didn't do some, the next material you might need to do wouldn't have the right information. So you are going to have solutions you could review as well to make sure you've done things correctly. But at the end of the day, you really have to go through each of the software to figure things out. And the good thing is, because you have a textbook and you're working through it, you can do this at your own pace. Some of you maybe have used software before. Has anyone used Sage that's on the call right now? It's not typical, but sometimes people have a part-time job where they are using some accounting package. QuickBooks is another common package that people use. I have some of my friends that in my real estate group that use QuickBooks, but I found it was kind of funny because a lot of people picked QuickBooks because it was very affordable in comparison to Sage. One thing just to talk about as you're thinking down the road, if you did have a job and you had a business where you wanted to use software, most of the softwares now have a cloud package. And if you're wanting to do it on the cloud, it's really nice. So for example, with Sage 50 that I'm using right now, I want to be able to use it and I want other people to be able to use it at the same time. Because I'm on the cloud now with my personal Sage software, I could be doing stuff here. And actually right now I'm on a cruise ship, which I know sounds really crazy, but if I showed you out my window, you would see that there's an ocean out there. And so it's kind of cool to be able to do these online classes. Last week I was in Belize. This week I'm on a cruise. Next week I'll be in Edmonton. And then in June, I'll be in Belize. So when I'm teaching you, I'll be kind of everywhere all the time. I guess you guys could do the same thing. If you haven't thought about going somewhere to travel, obviously when you're online, you can kind of do any kind of place you want to be, which is kind of cool. So like I said, you're working on your own pace, but one thing to note is even though it doesn't matter if you finish everything Wednesday, or whatever, but make sure by the end of the week, you try to finish whatever's in the schedule, because next week we'll be demoing something different. And if you're behind, it gets really hard to catch up. Okay, so that's one thing I like to make sure I let you know. So the first thing that we're going to do this week, and this is what you should start doing as soon as we're done this portion of the class, is you have to download Citrix and Sage as well as the student data files, and that's what's going to allow you to work through the course. Now, Moodle has individual videos on how to do this. So when I was teaching in person, I would actually do a demo, but because there's actual videos already completed, there's no sense in me doing the same thing because they're already there. So basically what you would want to do as soon as we're done this meeting, which will be recorded, and I'll put a copy of, or I'll put a link to this on Moodle. I'm going to show you in a minute the videos where they're located. And basically you follow all the instructions in the videos. And then, and here it is. So this is what it looks like. So if you're in Moodle right now, you could just take a look to make sure you see where this is. So it says student video resources. You could see on the left, I've highlighted it there. And then there's a video downloading Citrix and Sage. Now, I'll explain a little bit about what Citrix is used for, just so that it maybe helps you understand it. Basically, Sage files are really, really large. So if I, for example, in my rental business that I have Sage files, I really can't email a Sage file to somebody else to be able to use it. Now, because I use the cloud, it's a little bit better, but in the system, we're not using, obviously we're in the course, we're not using cloud-based. It's a lot more expensive, and this is a free version of Sage for schools. So Citrix is actually a system that allows us to use Sage virtually, okay? And you might use this in certain places you work in the future. I had one job way back when that I actually used Citrix for. And you're going to download all the data files. So basically, these are called CAB files, CAB files. And so this video is going to show you how, well, like I said, how to, first you're going to download Citrix and Sage, then create the folders, download your student data files into there. And then also it's going to show you how to practice. Now in this demo, the location of the data files will be different than yours because you're going to have them obviously on your computer versus what this video was showing. And then there is also a video for the steps for exam, assignment, and case submission. So that shows you how to do that. So basically, my part of this class is a little bit short because then you're going to be going into each of these videos, watching these, and this will be what you're actually doing for this week. So you should watch, other than the exam, assignment, and case submission, I wouldn't say you have to do that now because we don't have obviously the requirement to do this till the midterm, which I'll show you the date in a few minutes here. But basically these first 3 videos, as soon as we're done, I would recommend watching all of these. And as you watch them, do each step, because then you watch it, you actually do it, and then you have that part completely finished. Any questions on this before I move on?
So each week you're going to be updating the student video resources to what we should be doing that week?
Well, I'll show you that in a minute. So basically what'll happen every Monday, we will do a session just like this. And I did set up a recurring meeting. So you should just be able to click the same link every Monday. So put that link right into your calendar for Monday at 10 a.m. And you could just log on each Monday and I will talk about what we're doing each time. Now, I won't have videos like this necessarily up front, because what I'm going to do, just like this video we're doing right now, I'm going to record that after we do the session. So I think you were asking if it'll be there first, and the answer is no, because whatever we talk about will be added afterwards. Did that answer that question?
Yeah, so it'll change every week though, right?
Yes, it will change every week. Yeah, so
okay.
Right now we have these videos, which is for week 1. And what I'll do is I'll just say, because we have these general videos, then I'll have week 1. I almost want to call it week 1 video session. And that will, that will be exactly what we're doing right now because we have a recording of it. And then week 2, you won't see it until after we have this session and whatever we talk about in this session. So say you guys had questions. I mean, you don't now because, you don't have any questions about the textbook, but if you did, those would also be recorded for the week 2. And then later on, you could go back and look at that. And there is a planning calendar where we're not done yet on this material. So I will show you the actual calendar. So I just saw that. Thanks for that question in the chat. I always have to look at the chat as well to see if there's other questions. Anyone have any other questions before we move on? Nope. Okay. Got to see where there we go. Okay. So this is the course schedule, which I know you did. That was the question that just came up. So basically for this week, we already said, download the files, watch the videos. And then for this week, you can see for week 1 in the planning calendar, it said Citrix and chapter 1 and 2. So that is what you should be doing today, May 2nd, and then Wednesday, May 4th. But Wednesday, again, it's just a suggestion. That is when I'd like you to book time if you have specific questions for me, where we'll book meetings or we'll book specific times, one-on-one or groups or whatever on Wednesdays. But if you wanted to say today, finish everything with all the files in chapter 1 and 2, then Wednesday, you don't have to do anything. So again, Wednesday, I won't have a defined time where we'll have a meeting like this. It would just be on Monday. So then on week 2, next week, it's chapter 3 and 4 in the textbook, week 3, and you can just keep going through. The other things I wanted to point out here, midterm, is June 27th that we'll be doing that. And we'll talk more about that before we get to that week. So don't worry too much about that yet. You can see the final exam there, August 15th. And you can also see the case. We started week 13, which is July 25th. Then on week 14 and week 15, that's the cases as well. Now, you'll also notice another thing in the planning calendar. On week 4, which is May 23rd, that is a holiday. So we don't have class on the Monday. So I will do this session on the Wednesday. So I'll have to update the Zoom event to be on Wednesday, May 25th, because obviously we're not going to do it on a holiday. And the same thing on the long weekend in August. So we won't have a class on the Monday. So we'll do it on the Wednesday instead. And typically, like I said, the reason I'm doing it this way is I demo everything from that week's activities, typically when we're in person, and then you just keep working through, because most of this course is you working through the textbook. So any questions on this calendar here? No questions? All right. So only 23 minutes. And that's, I would say, typically in most of the classes, we should finish in about 20 minutes to half an hour, depending what I'm demoing, because the videos, again, for this week, you'll be doing those videos, and then you'll be working through chapter 1 and 2. So if you haven't got the textbook already, make sure that's kind of one of the first things you do, and then start those downloading videos. And other than that, I will, again, be online Monday. And I'll watch the chat here for a few more minutes. I'm going to stop the recording right now just because we don't have any material. And I will, thanks Ryan, he says, loves this class already. Probably because you could do it at your own time, which is what you like, right? You could just work when you want to work. And obviously you can watch the recordings. And because it's accounting software, I mean, in reality, there you have to do it on your own. It is nice though in a lab where you can like ask the person next to you questions, but when you're online, you could do the same thing. And if you guys would love to, like if you'd like to work with other people, feel free, if you know anyone else in the class, just say, hey, do you want to work together? And we can share screens and kind of figure stuff out together. It's obviously an option to do that as well. Quick, cute dog. I don't see the dog. I guess my screen is because I have the slides up. It's nice to work with your dog too, isn't it? Could just have, oh, I see now. Oh yeah. That's really cute. All right. I will see if I can stop the sharing here and the recording. It's always hard when I don't have 2 monitors here. So I'm like, where's my other monitor? So I don't see anything else in the chat. So have a great week, everyone.